One name that we're hearing on the defense that is really turning eyes, and a couple names that won't be really participating in spring ball. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Charge On. As always, I am your host, Sean Green. Before we get started, as always, a quick word from our sponsor, BetOnline. The tournament is here. BetOnline is your bracket headquarters for this season with the best bracket contests out there and odds, lines, and info on every game and every round right up until the national championship. You can access the most up-to-the-minute wagering information anytime from your desktop or your mobile devices, and even track your bracket real time all the way through the tournament. Head to BetOnline today and get in on all the action. Remember to use promo code BELIEVE for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. We also are sponsored by Cut. Hey, Believe Nation, as you all know, we've partnered with Cut, the social betting platform. Cut is a peer-to-peer betting platform that allows you to bet directly against your buddies and other fans. That's right. You can easily join the Believe UCF crew on Cut today and bet directly against me and Nick on your favorite sports, pop culture, and politics topics. Cut is the ultimate put your money where your mouth is platform, and it's legal here in Florida. Be sure to follow @CutBet on all your social media channels and download the app via the App Store or cut.com. Use code BELIEVEUCF for a 10% deposit bonus. All right, everybody. We've got a couple things to talk about this week. Just want to say again, appreciate all support on all the episodes. Again, I know this is a weird time in the offseason. Spring ball is, moving right along, almost over. Spring games on April 12th. I'm excited to see all you guys there. I will be there at that game. But we just got news about basketball, some good and bad news. Johnny Dawkins extension, but we also got a couple players leaving, and a guy that asked to get out of his national letter of intent. We'll talk about that a little later. But first, wanted to give a little update on spring ball, kind of again what we're hearing, what we're seeing. Gus had a presser earlier this week, and again we've seen some stuff coming out. Obviously, we keep saying like they were off for spring break. So they're finally back. They've been practicing. They've been kind of getting the install in. We're now getting to a point where, again, I think they're scrimmaging tomorrow, or they're doing some form of a scrimmage tomorrow. They worked on third down and red zone, I think, on, if I'm not mistaken, Wednesday or Thursday. I'm pretty sure Wednesday. So they're moving right along with kind of installing the offense and defensive principles. And it was interesting. Damari Henderson spoke to the media yesterday, and he mentioned there was a question about, hey, like, what's the differences in the defensive philosophies, or what's the different coaching style for new defense coordinator Ted Roof? And Damari just said it's just football. It's all the same. It's just worded differently, but it's just football. So I find that interesting, and I think we'll learn more about. They did say there's a little bit more aggression on defense. They're mixing and matching coverages a little bit more, which I like to hear because I feel like UCF played just a seemingly prevent defense. And I know for all you football nerds, it was not a prevent defense that they played, but they were playing, corners were playing off the ball. They weren't trying to give up the big play. I like hearing that there's a little bit of a switching up on the defense to try and catch your opponents off guard, change things up here and again, and show a little bit more aggressiveness on defense. With that being said, we've heard from Gus Malzahn earlier in the week, and again, saying all the right things. Again, when we talk about these press conferences, this is why I didn't love when Coach Hinshaw gets demoted, right? Because with Coach Hinshaw, we learned so much, so much when it came to the offense. Whenever a reporter would ask a question, Coach Hinshaw would go into basically a 5-minute poem about that specific player or that specific scheme or what this player needs to do to improve and what that player is doing. Coach Hinshaw was amazing in press conferences. Unfortunately now, he's not there. So I know, we're getting press conferences, but it's very similar answers to what we've got. They're not giving anything away, which is good, in the sense of if teams are trying to scout or see, it's good because they're not really going to get much. But it's bad for, media members or fans, because when they just want a little bit of a taste, you're not going to get it. Gus Malzahn talked and said that Kobe Hudson and Jakari Henderson are both going to be limited for spring. I'm going to assume highly limited, as in I don't expect to see Kobe Hudson in the spring game. Maybe for a possession. I know they said he got a little banged up, but Jakari, obviously, that's a little bit of a different scenario. Jakari was hurt last year, had a season-ending injury, so he's still trying to work his way back. I know Damari spoke on it on kind of his behalf on his injury, basically saying it's more about getting the mental right and just continuing to get better every day, knowing the type of player that you are, but just getting yourself 100% both physically and mentally before you can kind of take that step. But here's my thing about spring ball. Gus mentioned it. Kobe Hudson got a little banged up or whatever, and he's probably going to be more limited for the spring because, we know what he can do. Which I think, to be completely honest, right, you have a new QB, right? I think it was very vitally important to really have everybody available. Usually everybody's available for spring, but to get that quarterback wide receiver connection going. KJ talked about it. KJ said, and again, I loved the answer. He was very candid by saying, me and Kobe's relationship outside of football is we're best friends, right? But there's a love-hate relationship with quarterbacks and receivers. And you understand that watching, but you never think about it, right? And for him to outwardly say, me and Kobe have to work through things, not like there's anything negative, but for a quarterback-wide receiver relationship, there's going to be times where one of us is frustrated at the other. And there's that love-hate dynamic that we need to work through. And also, again, there has to build some trust. I think this is going to be really huge for Xavier Townsend, right? Kobe can't go. It seems like mainly he's going to be heavily limited for the rest of spring ball. This is the time for Xavier Townsend to really kind of, I don't want to say step up because he's stepped up every year he's been here, but really find that connection with KJ on the offensive side of the football, right? And really figure out, and I think they posted a clip, not with Xavier Townsend, or they did post a clip of a long pass from KJ to Xavier, which is, again, social team's amazing. It looked really good. They also posted, or I think it was Andrew Cherico, posted a video of KJ throwing a touchdown pass to Johnny Richardson in the end zone. Though I don't know if he stepped out of bounds. Again, it's spring ball. We have no idea. But again, this time for KJ and the offense is really about getting familiar, knowing what guys like to do, working into this offense. And again, I think the big thing is figuring out the offensive line. It sounds like they're really liking what the offensive line is doing. But again, they won't really know until, a couple scrimmages and you put the ball down and play. It's easy to see in certain specific drills and in little 7-on-7s and just running set plays on both offense and defense. It's obvious to see, oh, that guy looks good, that guy looks good. Until you put the ball down, and I think Gus said this, until you put the ball down and see what guys got, you really will never know. You won't know until you see it. You might think this center that you have right there is going to be your starter, and then literally on one Saturday afternoon, it turns around really quick. So I think offensively, I've liked what I've seen so far. Again, I was trying to make it out to a practice this week. Hopefully I can make it out tomorrow too if they have media, because we got some exciting things in the works. I finally think I'm able to go to these media functions. It's only taken 2 years, but we're gonna start giving you guys a lot more content. I know there's a lot of people giving UCF content in person, but I know it wouldn't feel right if I'm not doing that as well, given the podcast we have. So hopefully in the next week and then definitely next season there'll be a lot more in-person content. But with that being said, there's one name that continues to be kind of mentioned on the defense, right? We mentioned Jakari is kind of, he's a corner. He's out. He's still hurt. But one name that I don't think many UCF fans anticipated to hear much of is Chasen Johnson. Now, again, like when Chasen committed, right? Local kid, went to Seminole High School in Sanford. He was a good recruit. I mean, again, he was a 86 overall 3-star, a composite 86 overall, 6'1", 180. He was on the lower end of UCF commits, right? Now, again, this was no slouch of a guy. I mean, everybody, like when he committed, it was a big-time commit. Like if you go down the list of schools that offered him, Pitt offered him, South Carolina, Cincinnati, Florida State, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa State, Mizzou, Oregon State, West Virginia. I mean, he had a lot of offers, and he chose to stay home. But I mean, again, he's an incoming freshman, true freshman, coming in, and I don't think a lot of us expect, like, there's always, it seems like in the Gus era, there's always those, like, 3 guys, right? Like, that they come in and you hear a lot about them and you're like, okay, they're going to impress. They're going to be something, right? Last year it was like Randy Pittman, John Walker. Then like the year before you got Nakai Martinez, and you had Braden Marshall last year. Like there's a couple names that you come out and you hear like, oh, they're going to be legit, right? Well, this season it's seeming like it's Chasen Johnson. And a lot of these guys are saying he's running with the 1s and 2s. And if he keeps playing like this, there's a chance he gets playing time early, if not starting from day one. And again, like I said with the offensive line and offense, you take it with not so much a grain of salt, but I think, again, I bring up Damari, but Damari mentioned it. He said, like, hey, like, if you do it once, you're expected to do it again. If you make a play, great, it's a good play, but coaches are going to expect that of you to continue doing that. So I think with Chasen, it's like to hear that he is kind of taking that step and taking that leap as a true freshman in spring, and he's already running with 1s and 2s, that brings you a sense of excitement like, oh, I think UCF might have found a gem here. But we also have to realize it's spring. And in these scrimmages coming up, can he perform? Can he ball out? Can he continue the trajectory to where coaches are going to feel more and more confident and comfortable with him? Because again, I think the secondary, to be completely frank, I think there's positions on the secondary that are wide open. I mean, Brandon Adams is definitely going to be, back there. That's your number one corner. But to be completely frank, I think basically every other position can be opened up. I think there's going to be a lot of older guys that might have some precedent, a lot of incoming guys that are just more advanced in the college game. They've been in the college game that might set precedent and might get a little bit of the nod. But call it like it is. I mean, if you got a young Chasen Johnson really showing out and coaches are like, he's going to be a player for us in the upcoming season, he's just going to have to prove it in scrimmages. But it's really exciting to hear of some freshmen kind of making some noise early in spring ball. All right, that's our football for today. Obviously, I don't think the scrimmage is open to the public tomorrow. I don't know if they're going to be doing any open public scrimmage. I would assume they maybe do one next week. If you guys didn't already know, though, they said, I know on my Tuesday episode of UCF Report, I said, they'll probably make you, for the spring game, get tickets and download those free tickets, even though it's going to be free. They came out and said, you're not going to have to download any tickets. It's free. You show up. If you want special seating or something, they are offering tickets or certain packages where you can make those. But if you just want to come and watch the spring game on April 12th at 7 p.m., Knights versus Knots, you don't have to do anything else but show up. So that was good. That's a good thing to tell you guys. And I definitely will, like I said, I will be there. And hopefully we see some good football. The second half is mostly the games and stuff like that. But hopefully the first half we get a good idea of what this offense and defense is going to look like heading into next season. All right, let's quickly talk about some basketball because you know, the highs and lows of it seems like there's always a high with basketball and then there's a low. So I said, and again, I implore you guys, again, I'm doing a new show on the Zone Heads Orlando Podcast Network. Brandon Kravitz, it's kind of his thing, and I'm doing the UCF show on there. So if you guys want even more UCF content, I implore you guys to go check that out on Tuesdays. But I actually talked about Johnny Dawkins, and I said, listen, we have not heard anything, which I think it implies that they're probably going to, if we haven't heard anything by the end of this week, it's implied that he's got one more year left on his deal. He's going to run that out, just like UCF's going to let it run out and see what he can do next year. And it's beneficial for UCF because if Johnny has a down year next year, you don't have to buy him out, right? And if Johnny has a really good year, if Coach Dawkins has a really good year, then he's got all the leverage. He can ask for more money. Well, shortly after that episode, I think the next day came out, got announced that Coach Dawkins and UCF, there's an offer out on the table for Coach Dawkins. We're assuming he's going to accept that offer, and that Coach Dawkins will be the head coach for UCF basketball. And I think it's, again, there's a lot of rumors. I do not think UCF will be releasing the contract details for a contract extension on this one. They might, and if they do, we'll go through it. But I'm assuming it's a couple-year deal. I don't think it's going to be more than a 2-year excess or extra. So that means, he's have 3 years left on his contract. And again, I think UCF fans, it's, sometimes when I talk about this, some fans are like, oh, people aren't actually still talking about this, right? And you'd be surprised how many people actually do. And actually, even in conversation, not even just on social media, but in conversation are saying, oh, do you think we should resign Johnny? And guess what? He signed it gets announced about the contract extension. And again, look at all the negative comments. There is a clear, weird dichotomy within UCF fandom when it comes to Johnny Dawkins. I can understand. I understand everything. I'm not going to get into the same spiel I've got into, right? I'm not going to do that. We're just going to talk. It's well deserved. I think he definitely deserves it. He's been recruiting, his ass off. He's been recruiting really well, especially for a Big 12 lower end team when it comes to finances and all that, which I hope UCF's going to increase that and give him more money for the basketball program. But at the same time, now granted, this isn't too big of a deal, but UCF has lost a couple guys to the transfer portal. Prefer one of them, obviously, being CJ Walker. Now, to be completely honest, I think a lot of the names that have entered, like Marcellus Avery, he's vital because, again, if you think about it, CJ Walker leaving, that means Avery most likely would have started next year. Avery leaves, now you're kind of fishing for straws here. To be completely honest, I think, again, next season is going to be very similar to this season, which it's been very similar the last couple of years. You lose a lot of guys to the portal. You go into the portal and get a lot of guys to kind of make your team whole again. But the one thing that came out this morning was KJ Green, which was UCF's, one of UCF's highest ranked recruits in program history, just decommitted from Pace Academy, combo guard. He was a 4-star 95 overall composite on 247. According to 247, he was ranked a 3-star 88 overall. But on the composite, he's a top 100 recruit, 92nd nationally. And I think a lot of fans kind of went up in arms about it this morning. Because, again, it seems like he already signed his national letter of intent. This has happened now 2 straight years where it's, I think, 3 separate players have asked to be out of their national letter of intent to go to different schools. And this is now the 3rd time that this is happening. I think UCF fans are like, why does this keep happening? And I think it's a struggle because it's like, okay, this is a really good player. You only have one more year of Darius Johnson and Jalen Sellers. So why would a guy like this want to go? And it's very simple. Mikey Williams is coming in. Call it like it is. Mikey Williams is coming in. Mikey Williams to be completely honest, most likely is going to be your backup. I would think backup 2 guard, but I guess he might be the backup 1. And a guy like Kyle Green was probably thinking, hey, I'm going to come in and be one of the guys, right? Like in Kyle Green's defense, he's thinking I might come in, play 1 year, play 2 years, and then go to the NBA. Or 2-3 years, go to the NBA. Because I think Kyle Green could be that good. But when you got a guy like Mikey Williams, who is, in my opinion, better than Kyle Green, in Kyle's defense, he's probably like, I don't want to come. Like, Mikey Williams is going to be the kind of highlighted player. Like, everybody's going to be coming to watch Mikey Williams. So, does it shock me? No. I think you're going to see some news about UCF adding some players here in the next couple weeks with UCF basketball. But again, it's tough and it's like hard, and I feel bad for Coach Dawkins. Not so much that the players leaving would make a huge, significant difference for this team. I think if you bring in the right guys, I think UCF will be fine. But again, it's hard in today's age of college basketball to really become a solid team if you can't build the right way. If you're just replacing 50% of your production every year, you're hoping that you just catch fire 1 year, right? And again, UCF did better this year than anybody thought they would with the team that they had. Because again, you look at the team and you say, not a lot of offensive firepower. It's a brand new team, basically. So in this situation, it's going to be the same thing next year. It's going to be you're bringing back your top 2 offensive scorers, which is vital. But then you're basically replacing the rest of your team. So that's the frustrating dynamic of basketball. But if anybody can do it, Johnny can. And again, I think Johnny Dawkins deserved the contract extension. I'm glad he got the contract extension. I don't agree with he's peaked. I don't agree with that. I think you give him a couple years. Even if he struggles this year, you only have to buy him out of a 2-year deal, right? Instead of, a 5-6 year extension. So positive and negatives. You'll lose some guys, but I'm sure Coach Dawkins and the staff are already highlighting certain guys to come in, and we'll talk about those guys when they get signed, but that should be fairly quickly. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Charge On. Like I said, if you want even more UCF content, make sure to subscribe here, but also head over to the Zoneheads Orlando podcast feed and subscribe over there. We post episodes every single Tuesday where we talk about all things UCF sports, football, basketball, softball, baseball, soccer, tennis, whatever you guys want to hear, let me know. We talk about it over there. Please follow me on all social medias at Sean M.R. Green. That's where we're posting all UCF content as well as Orlando Magic content. If you're into that, we've got a lot of exciting stuff coming up with the Orlando Magic's, playoffs are coming up. That's kind of taken over my Twitter feed over the last couple weeks. But again, UCF content will always be there. So please, if you want content for all Orlando sports, follow me at Sean M.R. Green. All right, guys, we will be back next week to hopefully talk about more UCF football, especially with the scrimmage tomorrow and what we hear out of there. More news from Gus and the OC and DC. Spring game's coming up, only a couple weeks away, and it's an exciting time for UCF football. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you. This has been Charge On, presented by Bet Online. We will see you next week.